Hello again. Welcome to another episode of the Uranium Market Minute. Today is Wednesday, August 17th, and this is episode number 168. My name is Justin Huhn. I'm your host. I'm the founder and publisher of the Uranium Insider Pro Newsletter, the only investing newsletter that focuses solely on uranium, finds the best risk-reward investment opportunities in the space, and publishes on a regular monthly basis. As always, nothing that you see or hear in this podcast is intended to be investing advice. I'm not your financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please always do your own due diligence when it comes to investing and always take responsibility for your own choices. All right, good to be back with you guys. I've been out for the better part of the last week. Definitely been pretty sick here, which is not too fun when it's hot out. It's not too fun ever, but summertime flu is really not all that enjoyable. So I'm definitely feeling on the mend. You can still hear it in my voice, but my energy is coming back a bit here today. So thought I'd put out a quick episode. There's been a lot happening over the past week. I'm going to discuss a couple of elements that I think are worth discussing in the mailbag section today. We did see that the Biden administration passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is, possibly the most absurd name they could have given this thing. There's a bunch of terrible provisions in there in terms of the American economy, the American middle class, raising taxes, etc. But there is support for nuclear, and it looks like there's going to be plenty of funding in the form of tax credits for clean energy, tax credits for existing nuclear power plants. So that's very, very positive for nuclear going forward. So I am happy to speak on that, even though on the whole, I think that this bill that's just been passed is really, really terrible for the American middle class going forward. But with that said, happy to see nuclear finally officially in the conversation in terms of green energy, clean energy going forward, finally recognized on a bipartisan basis that this is very, very important for the American electrical grid and for clean energy going forward. So it's highly likely that going forward, we will have support for existing plants. We're even seeing Diablo Canyon continue to see support coming from the California governor, Gavin Newsom, now essentially offering a loan to PG&E for the operation of Diablo Canyon for an additional 5 to 10 years. I don't know why he's offering a loan from the state when there's federal support for the plant, but that remains to be seen. So why don't we take a quick look at the charts? Before we do that, let's go into the daily scoreboard here. The spot price of uranium, $48 a pound mid-market, finally actually ticking up today after sitting stagnant for over a week. In fact, it's been 2 weeks since there's been a single purchase of uranium in the spot market. And finally today, we're seeing some action there. Very interesting to see. And this is, as I've mentioned multiple times, this is the summer doldrums. This is exactly how it is. We have the third or fourth week of August is the slowest and the lowest volume week of trading in markets, generally speaking, of the entire year. It's lower volume than the week between Christmas and the New Year's. So it's just that time of the year when things are very, very quiet. And this time last year, actually, I'm realizing right now, August 17th, this is the 1-year anniversary of Sput's ATM going live. So that actually happened on this day last year. If you were not in this market prior to Sput's ATM going live, the market was pulling back significantly. So we had the low of last summer was in July, but the low in sentiment, in my opinion, was in August. We had a further pullback, even though it was a higher low, technically speaking, if you're looking at the charts, but sentiment was extremely negative. And you had actually a very similar sort of situation in terms of expectations right around the corner, and the stock's not reflecting that. So last year, of course, that was Sput. That was, oh, Sprott's taking over UPC and they have an ATM going live any day now, and the stocks are selling off. What the hell? That was last summer, right? And so now this summer we have and everyone on vacation, the summer doldrums, and we have right around the corner, we've got WNA, of course. We have all of the normal stuff that happens in the autumn, but we have myself and a number of other folks basically expressing a certain level of excitement and expectation of the U3O8 market for Q3, Q4 of this year, based on what we're seeing in the conversion of the enrichment markets. And I still feel that way. And I think that that's coming very soon. But the market clearly is not agreeing with me here. And I think that there's expectations of a deeper pullback, recession still kind of in the cards here, very much so for the US and in Europe as well. But it's very interesting to note that this is a similar moment in time as last year when Sput's ATM went live, and it took a minute after their ATM did go live and they started raising cash and buying pounds, and it really went crazy from there. Am I expecting that to happen tomorrow? No, I'm not. Honestly, I think that we're going to see some pressure being put on spot uranium, and we're going to hear about more term contracts, and that is going to push the term price and the spot price up. And I mean, perhaps today was the start of that. We finally see a little bit of movement in the spot market after a couple of weeks of absolutely nothing. But this is, in my opinion, and if you are a member of Uranium Insider Pro and you did see the weekly watch list that was updated on Sunday, we were precisely looking for this pullback that we're experiencing right now. This is what we're expecting, and going forward, this could be one of the last, if not the last, opportunities to buy these things on the cheap before we really see momentum hit the spot market. That's what I think we're seeing with this price action across the equities. Spud obviously still completely hamstrung at a minus 9% discount to NAV as of yesterday's close, still sitting on just over 36 million in their treasury. Over the past week, the sector ETFs, URA reported an increase of 500,000 shares, URNM a decline of 100,000 shares that led to mandated buying of just under $1 million, 896,000 in mandated buying. So not much, but interesting to see yet more inflows into URA. And again, typically, I think that URA does see more inflows due to the options market. The shares over the last week have been up and down, pretty choppy. Over the last couple of days, they've been selling off relatively significantly. So on that note, why don't we take a look at the charts? URA down almost 4% on the day, volume ticking up a bit here. Definitely feel like there's risk off coming back into the markets. Now, we did see weakness across the uranium market over the past few days while we saw the S&P continue to melt up against all odds. And I think that it's interesting that S&P has been just kind of climbing a wall of worry while everybody seems to be very, very bearish. So I'm hoping for across uranium equities to see a higher low on this pullback. Now, will this pull back more? I believe that it will. How much more? I don't know. I would love to see this the $17.75 to $18 level for URA hold on this pullback and make a higher low. That's really what I'd like to see going forward. But of course, the market doesn't always give me what I want. URNM relative to the spot price of uranium, the spot futures price. So this is quote unquote a basket of uranium miners relative to the commodity itself. Down significantly today with the spot price rising over 5% on the day relative to the actual price of the commodity itself. And this I would also like to see hang in there. I think that we're going to see some supportive moves for the spot price, and that could happen very, very soon. So how far will the equities pull back in a rising spot environment? I don't think they're going to pull back that far. So generally speaking, I would be looking for higher lows across the equities. Cameco down pretty heavily, over 4% on the day as well. Volume ticking up slightly, but really not capitulative volume here, just kind of risk off with a number of energy stocks being sold off. Cameco zooming out is a very, very strong stock here. This really has been the leader of the pack. I would like to see a higher low with this lower trend line hold. And I would like to see again this stock, like the rest of the sector, make a higher low. URA relative to the S&P, this one is definitely taking a dive off of the springboard here and gapping down a few days ago and a really big down day today, over 3% down relative to the S&P, clearly losing this trend line. Will this be yet another undercut low? That remains to be seen. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust not down very much today, but we did see the spot price up. So now we are probably right around that 10% discount to NAV that we seem to be clinging to for the past couple of months. We have closed that discount to NAV all the way down to minus, maybe 2 or 3% as of a couple of weeks ago. And it's been as wide as 16%, 17%, I believe, on the worst days. And that was last month, if I recall correctly. So SPUT Hopefully also here making a higher low again in a rising spot environment, which is what we very well could be entering here. I wouldn't expect this to sell off too much further than it already has. Okay, so mailbag section. I had a question come to me about Kazakhstan, what's going on in Kazakhstan. Seems like the relations are becoming a bit strained here. So I wanted to kind of zoom out on this situation a little bit and share a couple of thoughts. Bit of history, of course, Kazakhstan is a former satellite state of the former Soviet Union that broke up in '91. There's still strong ties between Kazakhstan and Russia. Historically speaking, there have been very strong levels of cooperation, both politically and economically. If you recall, back in January, there was pretty widespread unrest in Kazakhstan. Now, this was supposedly in response to price caps on fuel. What was it? Not gasoline. I can't remember exactly. I believe it was gas fuel. Price caps on that were lifted by the federal government, and the people revolted. Now, I don't know. That's the official story. Is that exactly what happened? I'm not exactly sure. But what did happen was Russia was called in and troops arrived, and they took care of that unrest in the matter of about 24 hours. It was just over. And so very interesting to see literally the following month. That was in January. So in February was the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And since that invasion has happened, Kazakhstan has definitely planted their flag in opposition to, at least in principle, opposition to what Russia is doing in Ukraine. And so that puts Kazakhstan in a very precarious position here, right? And so basically, after not only has Tokayev not come out in support of Russia, this has clearly peeved Moscow. There's been a couple of elements that have come out of evidence of that fact. So what we saw yesterday in a tweet that was quickly deleted, this is Putin's top lieutenant, Russia's head of its Security Council, Medvedev, suggested that Kazakhstan might be next on Moscow's list of countries to occupy. Now, this was deleted almost immediately, but there were a number of people highlighting that this did happen. Obviously, Kazakhstan is a very, very important source of uranium, of over 40% of the world's production. And whether or not, I'm not going to speculate on whether or not Kazakhstan is going to be some next target for Russia. I don't necessarily think that's the case, but clearly it seems that Russia is not pleased with the stance that Kazakhstan is taking with regards to their actions in Ukraine. So, and you know, I think that China finds Kazakhstan's uranium production extremely, extremely important. Okay, almost half of their production goes to China, and I do think that it's very, very unlikely that China is going to allow Russia to basically come in and take control of it. So we'll have to see how that goes going forward. But Kazakhstan is doing, in my opinion, the best job they can of walking this very precarious line, sitting smack dab between China and Russia, and clearly having historical ties to Russia, but obviously making sure that doing their best to signal to the West that they still are a reliable producer. Kazatomprom specifically is still a reliable producer and can be relied upon to be contracted with for uranium product going forward. On that note, on Friday, Kazatomprom will be providing the market with an operational update before the open of the North American markets. So we'll be paying very close attention to this, and we will obviously be including notes and our takeaway from what exactly is happening with this situation. If it's extremely timely, that will be in a bulletin. Most likely it will be in September's members only newsletter that will come out, I believe, on September 2nd, the second trading day of the month. Yeah, that'll be Friday the 2nd. So there's a lot hanging on this, and I think that Kazakhstan, like I mentioned, Kazatomprom has done as best they can to message to the market that everything is fine there. Obviously, everything is not fine. But going forward, we'll have to see how this all pans out. And clearly, for such an important uranium production country to be caught in this political mess just adds more volatility to the nuclear fuel markets. And they have been historically a very reliable producer to the West and to the East. And I'm sure that they would like to maintain that status to both markets. All right, I'm going to stop there. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for your patience with my getting over this sickness. I'm mostly through it, but still quite tired and definitely still dealing with some congestion, so bear with me. All right, we'll see you again tomorrow. Oh, you know what? I wanted to highlight something, and I almost forgot about it. I wanted to highlight a tweet from my friend. This is coming from my friend, Uranium Ironman. And I wanted to highlight this because I think that it's important. I'm noticing sentiment definitely shift towards the negative across Twitter right now. And that probably has to do with just the pullback we're seeing in the equities of the past few days, while the S&P is rising, while the fundamentals are fantastic. And I'm going to leave this person's anonymity intact, but Uranium Ironman, a very, very sharp individual and a friend of mine. And so he says, those I admire say things to the following effect. The greatest bull markets always, always have one last soul-wrenching coal to test the mettle of those who deign to ride them. Welcome to yonder uranium jungle. Buy cheap, buy quality. Options, or I'm sure he means like shitcos, small cap uranium explorers for torque to the old highs. And then he follows up with a reply to his own tweet here. In hindsight, all reckonings look like opportunities. In the present, they only show you fear. Thought that was very, very wise for this young man. This is just another test of our wits with this type of market, and it's going to keep doing this. So you've heard me say this plenty of times over the last year as we've gone through our ups and downs in this market. We've had a couple of pretty strong rallies over that period of time. We've had a couple of multiple gut-wrenching pullbacks. Looks like we're in the early days of maybe yet another one, maybe a last one. I do know with great confidence that going forward, the market for nuclear fuel for U3O8 is very, very strong, and it's about to make some very strong moves. And I do believe that the equities will follow suit. So I wanted to highlight that tweet from Uranium Ironman. I thought that was very wise of him to say that these great bull markets, they will test you, and they will test you repeatedly. And so this looks like maybe we're in the early couple of days of another test, maybe not. We'll see how deep this goes. I think we're going to be in a rising spot price environment very, very soon. Perhaps today was the start of that. So I don't think this will be a huge gut-wrenching pullback, but either way, volatility reigns supreme. And I would also suggest against Uranium Ironman suggestions of options for torque. Unless you really know what you're doing, be very, very careful with options, and definitely stay away from short dated calls or puts. Those will clearly hurt you in the long run. If you haven't been hurt already from short dated calls, you will. It's only a matter of time. All right, take care, be well. I will see you again tomorrow. Cheers.